We have a nice young brother. I think you're 18 years old.
Yeah,
That's right. So he's, alhamdulillah, he's 18 years old. His name is Sayyid Ali Shubairi. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct, yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Now, you're probably thinking, why have I got a Sayyid who looks Iranian? And we'll get into his background a bit later on a show called Reversion Story. But no doubt when you hear this story, I'm sure that it will become more apparent, inshallah. So without any further delay, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have reverts on the show.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Where are you from in terms of where do you live? Are you a Londoner? And your background, ethnic background?
Well, actually, at the moment, most of my life, I've lived in Brighton. So that's, you know where Brighton is in England. It's near London, but I'm always coming London. But I live in Brighton, and originally my dad is from Iran. So my dad's, you know, he's a Sayyid Iranian, and my mum, she's from Scotland. So, like, you know, I'm mixed, if you know what I mean. I'm half. Sure.
Yeah. So you're a Sayyid. Obviously, your dad's a Sayyid as well. And of course, your great-grandfathers, your forefathers are, alhamdulillah. So what are you doing on Reversion World, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, well, basically I've just come because, as you know, I'm from a mixed background. Both, I wasn't actually, you know, I wasn't raised any particular religion. So, you know, this is something I found later in life, like my early teenage years. And, you know, I just wanted to tell everyone, like, about my story, you know, what happened, everything like that. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, and so what is the religion of your parents? Your father is Iranian.
Yeah.
Is he a Christian or a Muslim?
No, he's a Muslim. My dad's a Muslim, like a Shia Muslim, but he's not really practicing. So like he doesn't practice that much. But,
and your mother?
My mum, she doesn't practice religion either, but she's originally a Protestant Christian.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So am I right in assuming that you grew up in a house where basically you've got a Christian mother and a Muslim father, but neither of them were practicing?
Yeah, neither of them were practicing. So like religion, it wasn't, you know, a big talk in my house. So it wasn't something like I really thought about or they thought about, because originally they are from those, you know, religious backgrounds, but neither of them were practicing. So, you know, I didn't really see them practicing, you know, going church or going mosque, anything like that.
Okay, and so in terms of you, I mean, what kind of impact did this have on you? Were you an atheist when you were growing up? Were you a Muslim when you were growing up?
Yeah.
Were you a Christian when you were growing up, or were you just none of the above?
Okay, well, no, I wasn't any religion. As you know, I did visit, like I've been to a church before, you know, just to see what the church is like, but I was never any religion. Like I just believed in God really, but I wasn't really sure, you know, if there is a God or anything like that. It was just, you know, I didn't see, religion wasn't a part of my life, you know, belief wasn't, it was just, I was young anyway, if you know what I mean, I was young, but it wasn't really something I thought about.
Okay.
And I wasn't raised anything at a young age, like, you know what I mean.
Okay, so you wouldn't, see, I have the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd have the impression that if I were to grow up in a household where I'd have okay, fair enough, both your parents weren't necessarily practicing, but if I had a parent who was, one was a Muslim and one was a Christian, I'd be thinking to myself, well, how does that work? Not so much in terms of how do they come together and how do they, you know, become my parents, but in terms of how you're supposed to, what your outlook, what your ideology is supposed to be, even at a young age.
Yeah. But no, basically, like, it's just because maybe if they were practicing, that's what I think.
Sure.
I would have took more interest, because, you know, when you've got two different parents, like say one's practicing, one's a Christian, you got one's a Muslim, and like they're taking you to either church or mosque, then you'll really start thinking. But that's what I'm saying, like they wasn't practicing, so religion, it wasn't really a big talk, so I didn't really wonder about it. But if they both, like say my mum was going to church, my dad was going to mosque, then I would have thought about it more. I would have been like, okay, so why is they not the same religion when they got married, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Sure. And so does that mean you never got the opportunity to go to mosque or to church as a youngster?
No, I never actually went to a mosque, but I did go to a church, but that was more to do with my school. Because, you know, like when you're in primary school, they take you to church with all the other kids. So it's basically I went church just to see what it was like with the other kids, and it was like a school trip and everything. So, you know what I mean, it wasn't really, and I myself, I wanted to see what it was like inside there.
You want so you went.
But my Muslim friend didn't go because obviously, you know, his parents didn't allow it, because I did have a Muslim friend. They didn't allow it. They said, no, you can't go to a church. But for me, you know, I was neither religion, like, so I was just like, I'm going to go see what it's like, what they do in the church and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you find it?
It was all right, you know. I do respect Christian people, but for me, like, it was nothing special really. Like, you know, it looked nice in there, but I just thought, you know, this is a boring place. I don't want to be here. Like, I was young as well, you know.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
How old were you in this?
I think I was about 8 or 9 years old,
Okay.
around that age. I can't
Sure.
remember exactly, but it was in primary school kind of years. That's when I visited one.
Sure, and obviously, I mean, church for an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old, most of the time, not always, but
Yeah.
most of the time isn't really the best place to be at that age. You want
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
out playing football or something.
Yeah, playing sports, you know, just playing with
Sure,
your friends there.
Sure. So you mentioned that you had a Muslim friend who didn't go to this church outing. How was it for you in terms of your friends? You must have had, because Brighton is quite a cosmopolitan place.
Yeah, yeah.
So you must have had Christian friends and Muslim friends.
Well, that's the main problem. I found out many of the friends that I actually had in primary school, they weren't really any religious background. Like, it was just like, we had the Muslim friend. He was like the Muslim in it, so he was like the Muslim that everyone knows, and they were just like. But the way I saw Islam from him, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't appealing to me, because all I thought was like, okay, he can't do this when he's older. You know, you can't drink. Like, he was telling me stuff like, you can't do this, you can't do that. So that gave me a negative image of, I was like, I'd rather be a Christian than a Muslim. If you've got all these rules, why obey these rules? I was like, enjoy life, you know what I mean? Enjoy it. So I was just like, no, I wouldn't want to be like that. Because, like, for example, as I said before, like, when he would hear music, like, he would cover his ears and stuff. So I thought Islam was something like proper extreme. Like, you always have to watch your back, kind of like, you have to watch what you do, watch what you say. Well, you do, but I mean, like, I thought it was just full of rules, and like, I didn't know anything about it really, what Muslims believe. I just knew he was a Muslim. And he was from a mixed background as well, but both of his parents was Muslims. One of them was a convert to Islam.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was a Muslim. Did he know that you had a father who was a Muslim?
Yeah, he knew that as well. He knew that my dad wasn't really practicing, but he knew, like, my dad was a Muslim as well. But he would ask me, like, you know, why don't you do this? Why don't you fast on Ramadan? Why doesn't your dad take you mosque? I didn't really have an answer, because I didn't really know, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you had this negative image of Islam because obviously everything that you were being taught was don't do this and don't do that.
Yeah.
So you were thinking that this was just a religion of a whole load of laws. How did that change, that impression that you had?
The impression, well, basically, this was later on, and like, should I go to that stage? Like,
no, I mean in terms of,
like,
because I remember you telling me that you had a couple of friends, and while on the one hand you had one who was telling you all the do's and don'ts, that gave you a negative impression about Islam.
Yeah, I met that friend when I was later. Like, I had one friend from my primary school. It's when I got into high school, I met this my Sudanese friend. I met my Sudanese friend, and that's when I started actually learning about Islam from him as well. And then I realised it's not just all negative, you know, don't do this, don't do that. It was talking to him, speaking to him, that's when I found out a bit more. But it was actually his mum, because when I went to his house, you know, she gave us dinner, everything. Then I started seeing a lot of, you know, what's it called, the writing, like the Allah, the verses and
calligraphy.
Stuff. Calligraphy, yeah. I started seeing this, and then after that, that's when I started asking questions. And then my friend from primary school as well, he knew him. Like, they started praying, everything. That's when I just started getting into it, like asking questions. You know, what is it, Islam? What do you actually believe? Because all I knew was Muslim. I didn't know, like, what they actually believe, if you know what I mean. I knew that Christians believed in Jesus, you know, Isa alayhi salam being the son of God or being God. But I didn't know what Muslims believe, so that was a different kind of thing for me.
So was it just coincidental that two of your, I'm assuming they were quite close friends of yours?
Yeah.
That two of your close friends happened to both be Muslim, even though, you know, maybe their outlook of Islam was slightly different. Two of your closest friends happened to be Muslim. I mean, what about, you know, non-Muslim friends? Was it just out of coincidence that you were closer to them than others?
It's probably out of coincidence, because, you know, I used to always, you know, chill with the jam with him, my other friend in primary school, my Muslim friend. I was just like, we were just closer really, like it was nothing to do with religion or anything like that, but we was actually just, you know, both of us closer, so it was just a coincidence that I knew both of them. So yeah.
So you would ask this Sudanese friend of yours, you'd ask his mum what the meaning of the calligraphy was?
Yeah. I would like ask us, like, what does it say? And they would just say, oh, it says it's talking about, you know, God, Allah. That's what we call God. You know what I mean? And then I understood it's just like it's verses of like our Bible. They say it like that way, like, because I didn't know what the Quran was really like. I remember my dad, like, you know, always had a Quran. He used to kiss it, everything, but you know, like I didn't really know what it was. They just like it's verses from our book that we follow. So that's why then I knew that was the Quran and everything. Then I said, okay, this is the Quran. That's the book they follow, obviously.
Okay. And these two friends of yours, did both of them go, or all three of you go to the same secondary school?
No, actually, the first friend from the primary school, we went to different high schools, and then the second friend, I met him in year 7. So it was like I met him in the first year of high school.
Right.
But that was like halfway through year 7. Then I met him.
Okay, so you guys are what, 11, 12 at this?
Yeah, 11. That was when I was 11 when I first met him. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just a bit confused. I'll tell you why. Because I don't know, maybe it's naivety on my part, but especially boys as well. I mean, if it were girls, I'd understand more maybe, but maybe I'm doing a disservice to the youth, to the Muslim youth.
Yeah.
I'm just intrigued as to how it is that you young men are discussing Islam at such a young age. I mean, I thought you'd be into like swapping football stickers or whatever it is that people do nowadays.
Yeah. No, obviously we had our hobbies, you know, like we love, like even both one of my friends, because the one in primary school, he was raised as a strict Muslim. So, you know, he was taught it from a young age. All of this stuff was really, you know, basic for him. But the thing about it, my other friend, he was kind of rebellious, like, if you know what I mean. He was Muslim, but he didn't like doing all of this because, you know, his mum was quite strict with him also. Like, you know, if you force someone to do something, they won't do it. That's what I mean. But when it was actually, they told me basically what being a Muslim is. But, you know, they didn't really tell me that much. But it's actually when I met his mum, then, you know, I started learning about that. And it's actually, I was a young age, so I was 11, 12. Like, when I started learning about, like, most people, or like some of my family thought it'd be just a phase. Because you know how you're young, you know, sometimes you like this, the next thing you like that, you go through a lot of phases. But it was something I was actually interested in. I wanted to learn more about, like, you know, I liked it more. I wanted to learn more about, so I kept asking questions to his mum. Then I started researching it myself.
Okay, and so at this young age, did you do any, did you practice the religion? I mean, were you fasting, praying at this young age of 11, 12?
Well, not at 11 because I wasn't still Muslim. I was just learning about it, and I used to pray with them sometimes even though I wasn't, you know, a Muslim. But then it was just like, you know, when I was 12, you know, I shouldn't have really fasted. Like some people say you shouldn't fast when you're young, but I just wanted to do it. Like I didn't manage to do all the 30 days, but I tried my hardest to do them. Like, and then my dad was saying you don't have to do it, wait till you're older, but it was just something that, you know, I want to do it. I want to start fasting. It was something I wanted to do. Like, it felt good that's when I became Muslim. It felt good when I was fasting. So
sure.
I just, like, you know, it's more spiritual kind of thing.
Okay, and what about the praying? I mean, you know, here you are. You know, you didn't really consider yourself to be a Muslim, even though your dad's a Muslim. Okay, you've got a couple of Muslim friends. One's, you know, a bit not extreme, but, you know, has been taught in a particular way, and you've got another friend who's, you know, slightly more rebellious, and you're praying with them.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that feel? Again, you're relatively young. You're doing all of these actions. You're putting your head down on the floor, etc., etc. You're reciting in a language you don't understand.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah. Well, at first, the first time when I saw them, I never actually put my head on the floor. I just, you know, stood up like, you know, my arms crossed, like the way they would do it. Because I didn't feel like, you know, I thought I couldn't probably do it. That I just stood up there or like next to them when they went to do sujood. Like I don't really do it. You know, I was just standing there like watching them, but I was kind of participating, if you get me. But
sure.
I wasn't.
So you was kind of half praying.
It was half. It was a half kind of thing because I was like, I'm not going to do something if I'm not totally committed to it as well.
Of course.
And I think at like 11 or 12. Like me, I was trying to look for, because my mum asked me this question. She said, "What's your identity?" So she said to me, like, "What do you see yourself as? Who are you?" And then I was like, "Actually, I don't even know." So it wasn't something I was looking for identity or something like that, but it was like in your teenage years you learn a lot of things, like you meet a lot of new people and experiences. So that's like I was interested in Islam as well, but I was like, yeah, what is my identity? What do I class myself as? You know what I mean? I'm from a mixed background. I have no religion really, so you know what I mean? So when I did become Muslim, that's like my identity. I'm a Muslim, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Weren't you curious as to what they were saying? I suppose they were able, obviously, to recite the prayers in Arabic, of course. Even at that age. But
that was the hardest thing when I actually became Muslim. It actually took me 6 months to learn how to pray. And that's like, you know, that's commitment. You have to be committed to it. Like I learned on the internet, actually. Like you get a lot of stuff from the internet, but that's basically before I learned their way, the Sunni method of prayer. That's the way I learned it. And then, you know, I learned all the actions, but then I was learning the surah bit by bit. So like I would say half of Surah Al-Fatiha, but I wouldn't know it all. And then like I was thinking, oh, I'm never going to learn this prayer. I'm never going to learn it because, you know, it's Arabic as well. And I also, something that I thought as well is like, why do we have to pray in Arabic as well? So that was another thing. But then, you know, they explained it to me. This is a language it's revealed. Like Jewish people, they pray in Hebrew, if you know what I mean. So that was a language that was revealed. So then I understood that, and then it's just learning it. Finally, after that 6 months, I memorized it, and I was like, I know how to pray, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, Alhamdulillah. That was the first big step. When anyone converts, reverts, you should learn the prayer and just do it bit by bit, bit by bit.
Sure. And again, going back to your friends who were praying at a young age, did they understand what they were saying when they were praying?
Well, the other one, he was Sudanese, so obviously, you know, he speaks Arabic fluently. So yeah, he had a basic understanding, but it is like old Arabic, like Fusha Arabic. But the other one, I can't really answer. I'm not sure if he knew it, if he did understand it, but he knew basically what he was saying. I think he had books where, you know, it says the English translation.
Sure.
But even when you're that age, like to read the English translation, it's like really old kind of English, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. And the Sudanese, your Sudanese friend's mother was almost like, am I right in assuming, your first kind of teacher, the first one who taught you about Islam?
Yeah. She was a real help for me, because she started giving us lessons as well. Like I wasn't Muslim, but I just wanted to learn. She started doing like little lessons for us, like every week at his house. We go on Saturday, and she'd have the whiteboard there. She'd just write down things, and she would just teach us very basic things, and also for me as well, because I was interested, you know what I mean? It wasn't just like, I want to be Muslim because my friends are Muslim just to fit in. Because a lot of my friends wasn't Muslim back then as well. Majority of them wasn't Muslim. It was just these two guys. But it was just something I wanted to learn. Like it was something I wanted to do. So it's just like I want to learn what it's like, if you know what I mean. Sure.
So you mentioned to me as well about a trip that you'd made to Tunisia.
Oh yeah. I was about 12 years old. I went to this is after I converted as well, but I was still learning, because it was halfway through when I was 11. It was actually when I was 12 I converted, but halfway when I was 11 and 5 months, I think it's like that. That's when I was learning about Islam for a long time. And then finally I said the Shahada when I was 12 years old. So that was, and then when I went there, you know, I saw real Muslim people. I saw how, like, you know, the manners they have, you know, how everyone's kind towards you. And I saw like the masjids there. I went to the big masjids. I thought it's amazing, like some of the masjids there. Because sometimes in England you don't really see the masjids they have over there. They're massive, like they're proper big ones. Yeah.
Sure. So you really enjoyed that trip?
Yeah, I enjoyed that. You know, I rode a camel as well. You get me? I went to the you know, what's it called, the bazaar, like where they sell everything. I went there and I met a lot of people as well. And when I said to them as well, I said, you know, I became Muslim. They were saying, mashallah, mashallah. They said, my dad wasn't with me. It was just my mum, her friend and her son. And then they were seeing my mum as like, you know, seeing her as white, you know, British. And they couldn't believe it as well. They're like, oh, you're Muslim, everything.
Yeah.
But I only did know Surah Al-Fatiha, so I was still trying to learn the full prayer back then. Like I knew just one surah, yeah.
And so you were about 11 and a half when you decided to convert to Islam?
Well, no, exactly 12.
Exactly 12.
Over this about 4 months, 5 months, I was actually just learning about the Islam. Like I was learning about it. Because I wanted to know what I'm getting into, like, you know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah.
How were your parents? I mean, you're 12-year-old. Yeah. I mean, normally when I speak to reverts, they're 18 or 19 or in their 20s. You're 12 and you're, I'm assuming, going to say, Mum, I'm a Muslim.
Exactly.
What's the response?
My mum, at first, she thought it was like a phase, innit? Because she's saying she thought it was a phase, like, she thinks it's just because my friends are, you know, I want to do it as well. She thought it was just something I'd grow out of or something. Like, she you know, she didn't object to it, she was happy. She said, whatever you, she said, me and my dad, your dad, we haven't raised you Muslim, Christian, we'll let you decide yourself. But then when my dad heard, as I said, my dad, he is Muslim, he's a Sayyid, but he's not practicing, so he wasn't practicing. When he heard it, he was saying, mashallah, he was like, I just said one night, they're both in the living room, I just said, I want to be a Muslim. And then he has shock on his face, he called up his family, and because, you know, some of my family, especially in Los Angeles, the ones in Iran, they're more religious, but they're not really religious, if you know what I mean. So it was a big shock to him, like out of nowhere his son comes out and says, yeah, I'm a Muslim, I want to be a Muslim, so you know what I mean.
And so what, the family was shocked, but they didn't...
They didn't object to it, but my mum was a little bit worried because, you know, you see the stuff you see on the news, the media portrays Muslims in a bad light, if you know what I mean. So
sure.
My mum, she's just like, she was a bit worried. Even my dad as well, they're like, don't get brainwashed by anyone, because they were like, who am I finding this information out? And then I let my mum meet my friend's mum, and then she's a very nice woman, blah blah blah, you know what I mean. So after she knew where I was getting my information from, so it's not just some next guy, like some guy with a beard came to me, drove me, said, follow Islam, this is what you do, you know what I mean. It was just, and then after that, she just like, they accepted it, they said it's alright, especially my dad as well, it was a shock to him. So
sure. And was that your only source of information, in terms of, is that the only place you were learning Islam, and you learned enough from there to decide to become a Muslim? Or were you reading books? Were you going to the library?
Well, we do have there's a big Sunni Muslim community in Brighton, but basically, they have a store, they have like a shop, it's a food shop, like international food shop, halal meat, but they had a lot of Islamic books as well. So I started getting a lot of Islamic books from there and reading about it, like anything I could read, because I was generally properly interested. And then when obviously the internet, you know, there's a good websites, a lot of good websites to actually learn Islam from. So the internet was something like, as I said, it helped me pray, like learn a lot of information about Islam. So the internet was one of the biggest things.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, thank you very much. I think we're going to stop there, and what we'll do is we'll go for a break, and when we come back you can tell us about your experiences from about the age of 12 onwards, when you, alhamdulillah, decided to become a Muslim. Thank you very much so far, Sayyid Ali Shubairi.
That's right.
Shubairi. Yes, interesting so far. So join us in a couple of minutes where we can get straight back into the story of Sayyid Ali. Join us in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum.